G'day, lads and lasses, and welcome to the Tune Under podcast. Another episode from us down under Newcastle fans, celebrating a wonderful win at the early hours of Wednesday morning. It's all blurring into one now, but sharp on the heels of that, we're sort of doing a preview for the Aston Villa game. So without wasting any more time, we're going to dive straight into it. So today we've actually got Seb joining us from the Holtecast podcast. I listen to it on Spotify. So he's joining us. How you going, Seb?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks for joining us. It should be. It's always nice to get that other's perspective and discuss some of the things that are going on at the two clubs. See how we go on. And again, we're joined with Craig up in Cairns. How you doing, Craig?
Very hot, very bothered, but I've got the aircon, so I'm loving life right now.
It's actually not too bad here in Brisbane today. We had a cool change. It's only been 28 today.
36 I got to today.
Oh God, yeah.
Jesus.
So it'll be our winters for Seb's benefit and for anyone else listening in the UK. Our winters here in Brisbane are really good because it's like 22, like all winter, no rain, just sunshine. Jeez. When it gets to summer though, that's where it gets a little bit hard to handle because it gets to the 30 degrees and 32 degrees, but it's like 80% humidity and you literally cutting the air with a knife. So. But anyway, enough of that. So we, as I mentioned, we've got a guest on for today to discuss the game. Obviously, Craig and myself are buzzing after an absolutely fantastic win against Everton. Few of the new lads played really well, including our Aston Villa loaned left back, which he's obviously not going to be able to play at the weekend. So I wanted to kind of start things off with Seb. I wanted to get your opinion on how things have been going. Obviously, 3-3 draw the other morning for you guys against Leeds. What did you make of that game?
It was a really difficult one to concept. I went on the podcast afterwards and I was really struggling to get my words out, which is, never a good thing for someone who's on a podcast. But it was like, I think I described it as Lamborghini in attack and Robin relying in defence. We just couldn't, for everything that we did well, we seemed to mess up through our own bad defending. And it is so frustrating to watch when you've got quality players like Jacob Ramsey, Philip Coutinho, Emi Buendia, creating plays and looking almost world-class at times in defence. And then you've got Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa who just through lack of defending and stupidity is what I called it, just let all our hard work be undone. Really frustrating, but that always comes against the Leeds side. They're almost an anomaly to play against, aren't they? You've almost got to match them to be able to get a result whilst also not letting them get a foothold on the game. So I think we did well to be able to create so many chances. However, just defensively, it was so poor.
Yeah, we've kind of had our own issues with that as well. We've seen Eddie Howe try and establish like a more attacking-minded style of football since he's been here. Obviously, we've had issues where our players just weren't fit enough to play that, but we went through a spell there where we dropped a lot of points because of stupid errors at the back as well. Craig, what's your reminiscing of Dubravka's issues and Lascelles' issues?
Yeah, it's 21 points dropped from winning positions so far this season, most in the league by far. I don't know. It's such a hard thing to digest because even if we had just half of those points, just 10 of those points, we would be mid-table, above mid-table. It's such a weird thing, the fact that confidence was so low. And we almost expected to concede every time we went ahead. I know when we played Watford and we got the first win, we were thinking, well, when are we going to concede? When are we going to concede? Because that's all we'd been doing, taking the lead and then conceding. Same happened against Man United. And I think, actually, no, did we come from behind against Palace? I can't remember. When Wilson got that overhead kick. Not too
Yes,
sure
we
now.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we managed to squeeze one back in.
So many times where we took the lead and we just threw it away. It was so frustrating, but it looks like we've actually put that behind us. Leeds, we were solid, albeit Leeds fielded a slightly weakened team due to injuries, but against a very good, or at least individual basis side of a Everton team, we outplayed them all over the park.
Yeah. I mean, I guess our problem's been that it's been this constant thing in the background where it's been, there's always been a mistake there. I mean, I will hold my hands up and say that I'm defaulting to Seb's judgment on this one because I don't watch a lot of Aston Villa games. It's hard enough getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning to watch the Newcastle games without having to watch loads of other ones as well. Is this something that just kind of cropped up out of nowhere against Leeds for you, or is it something that's kind of been niggling at the back for a while now?
I mean, this season we haven't been near enough as good defensively. Last season, Emi Martinez came in and we were brilliant. I think we kept something like 15 clean sheets over the course of the season. We looked unstoppable. No one could get past us. And then this season, that's almost completely switched on its head. Throughout Dean Smith's losing run, I think he ended up dropping Tyrone Mings at one point due to poor performances. And it's just spiraled on from there. Gerrard came in and it seemed to look a bit better. We've had Digne added to the ranks. And we played against a rejuvenated Everton team with Duncan Ferguson. And we were thinking, this could be a really difficult test here. And we managed to withhold that really well. We stopped them and we ended up keeping a clean sheet in that one. And for me, it was like, brilliant. Let's use that now and let's kick on. And it just seems to have all unraveled again. Hopefully, when we visit Newcastle, it'll be similar in the fact that we're facing a Newcastle team who is rejuvenated, who has 2 wins on the bounce now, and will be able to channel our performance against Everton and be able to keep you out again. But if we put in a display like we did against Leeds last night, then Chris Wood loves the goal against Villa as it is. If we play like we did last night against him, then he could be getting hatfuls.
Yeah, so one of the points I was actually going to ask you was, early season form, obviously changed manager because of that bad form early season. Certainly wasn't at the level that you thought you needed to be at. So obviously went out, got Gerrard. I actually think that was a pretty decent signing for a managerial appointment. I think he's done well up in Rangers. There was always that question mark of, it's a 2-team league. Is he actually going to be able to translate that through? And I think we actually saw a pretty decent upturn in form when he joined. I feel that there was a couple of managerial changes at the time that almost kind of made comparisons there between them all. And it was difficult because, Gerrard was coming in and instilling his own style of play there, and he's sort of changing some things around. But what I wanted to ask was, what sort of changes have you seen since he came in? And do you think that what he did was get a new manager bounce, and things are starting to kind of settle a little bit now? Or do you think there's still sort of like progress being made?
I mean, there's always progress to be made in football whenever you play, whoever you've got as manager. But in terms of have we seen progress so far? Yes, 100%. Early on in the season, obviously, we lost Jack Grealish, and that was a big, big blow for us. And that's a player that Dean Smith relied heavily on. We saw earlier on in the season that we didn't really have a style of play. I was sat watching Villa thinking, I don't know what we're trying to do here. We seem to be looking for Jack Grealish, knowing that he's not on the pitch. We were relying on Emi Buendia, who's just recently signed, to have the same form as Jack to be able to carry us through, and it just wasn't working for us. However, Gerrard seemed to have come in and he massively stabilised the midfield. I think the performance and upcoming of Marvelous Nakamba was key in Gerrard, and unfortunately for him, he's got a season-long injury, so that hindered us slightly. But in terms of our midfield, you look at Jacob Ramsey, who's come on leaps and bounds since Gerrard's come in. He's, for me, one of the most exciting midfielders in the Premier League right now. I was on the Holtecast last night, and I think someone said, Prime Kaka would struggle to dislodge Jacob Ramsey on the form that he's in. You see it with Gerrard, with the January transfer window as well. if we still had Dean Smith as manager, Philip Coutinho wouldn't be an Aston Villa player, and possibly even Lucas Digne. He brings that aura about him that players want to play under him, and that just brings confidence. And Tyrone Mings came out and said the other week that Gerrard's helping them push to levels that they've never even seen before. So it's exciting when you're hearing that as a fan, but you've got to see the performances in it as well. It's no good them talking about how good he is. They've still got to go out and show it. I mean, he's still got half a season to play through. He's been at the club, 2 months? And in those 2 months, I've been really impressed with what I've seen. You know, everyone's a genius with hindsight, but Gerrard wasn't my first choice at the time. I was worried about his stature being more important than how he is as a manager. I remember when we sacked Steve Bruce in the Championship, Thierry Henry was our number one candidate. So I was thinking maybe the board are going for names here above who we really need. So that worried me. But since he's come in, you know, he's completely won me over. And I think I speak for most of the fan base when I say we are right behind him now. We back him completely and we're able to see in the direction we're going. I think the connection between the club and fans is important with any club. I think you'll certainly see that for when the difference is when you were under Benitez to when you were under Bruce. If you get a manager that gets the club, the fans are so much more likely to get behind you and be willing to cheer you on. So, yeah, in terms of Steven Gerrard, I love him, but he's still got a long, long way to go yet.
I think his career there is going to be still very much early days. I mean, it's interesting that you brought up the fact that, you know, he's a big name and he's attracting these players to come and play for him. And that was one of the things I brought up on a recent podcast for us was Howe wasn't that big name player. It's like nobody overseas is going to really go, oh yeah, Eddie Howe, I know exactly who that is. We're going to go and play for him. It was like this. Well, is it going to be that detriment to the club if we're going after this big name player who, I mean, doesn't know who our manager is, but then there's a manager out there, you know, Steven Gerrard, who's won the Champions League. He's won like loads of trophies. He's been in the England squad. Everyone knows who he is. Is that going to count against us, sort of thing? And obviously with Coutinho, it was always going to be a case if he wanted to go back and play for Gerrard. There's definitely history there. Craig, what did you make of? I think we've discussed this before with Howe, and do you see Gerrard being that big name that kind of gets players wanting to go and play there?
Yeah, he definitely has that aura about him. I think everybody, even kids now who may not have seen Gerrard in his prime, will know how good of a player he was and the reputation that he brings with him. And he just has that winning mentality, and players who've played with him can never speak highly of him. You know, he always got one person coming from a club saying, oh yeah, this person was an idiot, fell out with this person, you know, like the Craig Bellamy type. There was always someone like that at a club. But Gerrard, he always seemed to build his team up. And if you look when they won the Champions League, I think back in 2005, when Rafa was the manager there, the way he pulled that team back together when they were 3-0 down at half time to beat AC Milan and then win it on penalties, that game for me alone just made him stand out as, at the time, one of the best midfielders, not of just his time, but probably the generation of all time. He's definitely one of those players which can lift you. And to bring Coutinho in, there's no disrespect to Aston Villa. It is a bit of a downgrade from Barcelona to Aston Villa. But when you've got somebody like Steven Gerrard, who you've played with, you know what he's capable of, you know what he will bring and get the best out of you as a captain and now as a manager, then yeah, he definitely has that step above Eddie Howe right now.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is as well, if you're in a position like Coutinho was, where his career had kind of stalled a bit at Barcelona anyway, you're going to want to go to somewhere where you feel comfortable because you know the manager's going to try and get the best out of you anyway, and knows what your game's about as well more than anything. So that could be that's obviously going to be a huge thing to discuss. I've got a few other things that I want to touch on, but while we're on Coutinho, how do you reckon he's actually sort of settled in, Seb, since he's been there, and what have you made of his performances so far?
I mean, I've been really impressed with him. I think you could tell from when he came in that he'd struggled due to lack of minutes. So the recent international break has worked wonders for him. He's been back in the Brazil squad. He scored a wonder goal for Brazil.
Yeah,
That
so
will
that
only
was
increase
great.
his confidence. Yeah, I mean, vintage Coutinho, really. The first thing Gerrard said when he came in was, to get a good Philippe Coutinho, he has to be happy. He has to feel loved. He has to feel wanted at a club. And Gerrard's the perfect man to do that for him. And you've seen that in his performances. He came on against Manchester United when we were 2-0 down. I think he got the assist to make it 2-1, and then he scored the equaliser. And you could almost see that lifted him then. He had a good performance against Everton, and then he scored again last night and got 2 assists. I think something that's key to Coutinho's performances is also the performances of Jacob Ramsey. The bond that those two have struck up in a short time is surprising, but magical nonetheless. Especially with Buendia, that little triangle is working wonders for us at the moment. Teams are really struggling to handle us. In terms of his goal last night, I don't know whether you've seen it, but again, vintage Coutinho inside the box, to be able to tuck it away from that angle is something that not a lot of players offer you, especially players that we already had in our ranks before he signed. He doesn't need 3-4 opportunities to put one away. You give him the ball in the box and he will make something happen. And I think that's something that Villa really needed. And to be able to go out and get it in a player like Coutinho, the buy option's there. So people will see this, he's only on loan, he'll do really well and then he'll go to a bigger club. We've got first priority on him, so it's almost a deal that couldn't go wrong for us. If he came in and he struggled to make an impact, we send him back to Barcelona and we thank him for his time. Whereas if it goes well, he'll be an Aston Villa player and he can help push us on to those next levels that we want to go to. So in my opinion, it's a win-win situation.
Have you actually got a fee already organised and
I think it's something around 40 million euros. So I don't know what that equates to pounds, but it's
really important. Yeah, it's really super important to have those things in place when you've got that key player that could work out. I mean, countless times we've had under Mike Ashley when we had players on loan, they worked out, and then it's like haggle time because we didn't actually have anything in place. It was just a case of get them in and not actually think anything beyond the current season. So it's nice that the owners and sort of manager are all thinking ahead and this is going to be good. If he works out, we definitely want to keep him and sort of progress with him. So yeah, no, that's actually really good to hear. So obviously one of the both clubs have had quite busy transfer windows. Newcastle were linked with pretty much every player in the planet at one stage or another. I think we did a post-transfer window review, and it was well over 100 players we'd been linked with through January. It was hectic at times trying to keep up with everything. Obviously, we went backwards and forwards with a number of those as well. We went in for Luca Digne, apparently, and he didn't want to come. He opted to move to Villa. And then, strangely for me, we ended up with Target on loan from yourselves. Obviously, Target won't be allowed to play in this game at the weekend because of the Premier League loan rules, but he was and correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was your player of the season last season, wasn't he?
Player of the season, yeah.
Yeah, so he's obviously been playing quite well. He's been making an impact. That seemed like a very strange one to me, and I wanted to get your opinion on, from what we've seen so far, and I'll get Craig's opinion on the one game that we've seen off Target so far for us. But he slotted straight in, and he literally looked like he'd been playing for us all season. Didn't put a foot wrong. Didn't wow. Didn't sort of create anything major. And I think Lee pointed out on the Everton Review podcast that he's going to have to get used to not being passed to off St. Maximin. But he's creating that overlap. He's creating the space. He's creating options. He looks a decent player, and I wanted to get your opinion on exactly what you made of replacing him effectively in the squad at the moment.
This is a really difficult one for me. He's a player that I was disappointed to see leave, however, not devastated, if that makes sense. Yep. Gerrard Gerrard had said ever since he came in that he wanted a squad. He wanted 2 good players in each position. So to bring Digne in, but let Target go, it was like, well, we had 1 left back. We've brought Digne in, and now we've gone back to having 1 left back. Target is a player that will give you a 6 out of 10 performance most weeks. I think the reason he had so much success last season was a lot down to his relationship on the pitch with Jack Grealish. He was quite happy, like you said there, to give Grealish a ball and go, you know what, you make something, I'll be here if you need me. But if not, you know, I trust that you can go and create something further up the pitch. He's not a player that will go and do that for you himself. I think there were a lot of times where we were under the cosh, and Target was one of those players that would sink into himself instead of standing up and going, look, this is what I'm made of. Give me the ball. I'll make something work down the channel. So it really depends on how you're playing at the time. I think there were many times where he came up against Adama Traore, and like I said, he sunk it. I think there were 2 times we played Adama Traore and he'd got the better of him within the first half an hour. And I think both times he came off injured, which is, you know, a bit worrying to see. If you're struggling so much, then you go down quite easily with injury. But look, Target's someone that was really good to us. He kept us up the first season we were there, and then he helped us kick on in our second season. Obviously, I was touching on our defence last season. It got 15 clean sheets, and he was a part of that. He was integral to that. But the loss of Jack Grealish certainly hindered him, and then the loss of Dean Smith as well. He seemed to struggle under Gerrard when he came in. So it was certainly an area that Villa needed to improve to be able to kick on to the next level. However, it's disappointing to see a good squad player leave. It's come out that he wanted to leave, that he was the one that pushed for it, seeing as he wouldn't get many minutes, which is fair enough. And I don't want someone at the club who isn't willing to stay around and fight for their place. If he thinks that he's not going to get many minutes, then fair dues to him. You can go and play elsewhere. I don't think he has a career at Aston Villa anymore. I think, you know, depending on how he does for you, it will either be you that buy him in the summer or he'll go elsewhere. He's a solid bottom half Premier League left back. He's exactly what you will have needed to help you in your relegation battle. And I think you lot will really take to him. However, it's just about the consistency. If he can offer you that consistency, and if he's playing with St. Maximin, if he can offer the same relationship with Alan that he did with Jack Grealish, then I think you'll be in for a treat. They'll be able to work down the left-hand side brilliantly and create loads and loads of chances. However, if he struggles to make a relationship, then he might feel quite isolated out in that left-back spot, and it might become a position of liability quite quickly for you. If he faces a quick winger or a tricky winger, then he'll be under a high amount of difficulty. Target's very chalk and cheese, and he's someone that massively divided our fan base as well. There were a lot of people going, look, he's not good enough, we need to upgrade. And there were a lot of people that were going, well, look at what he did last season. You know, the performances are there, give him some time and hopefully he'll be able to replicate that. So he's one that I'm disappointed to see leave, in the fact that if anything happens to Lucas Digne, we're stuck with 16-year-old Ben Crisson from our academy, whereas he wasn't good enough to start. So I recognise that he will have wanted to go for the better of his career.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I think from our point of view, we had Paul Dummett, who can never stay fit. Lewis, who is now not even in the squad. So clearly Eddie Howe doesn't rate him. So he's you know, we're now kind of like slotting in a right back at left back if we need to. It's been a very, very messy position for us for quite some time. It seems like a real upgrade for us, even if it is literally just in the short term. I mean, I keep saying this on social media, as you know, we're not wanting top half finishes. We literally need to finish fourth, bottom or higher this season, and that's literally all it's about for us. And he improves us from what we had. He gives us that Premier League experience. So, I mean, Craig, what do you reckon for that signing and his first performance?
First of all, for the signing, I mean, I think you're right. It's technically our fifth right back of the season. Left back, sorry. We had Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett. Yeah, Matt Ritchie.
The wonder god at left back that is Matt Ritchie.
Generally, the worst left back in history. Fair play, he's not his natural position. But I've had Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett, Jamal Lewis, Manquillo. He's had a bit of a spell there, and now Target's come in. So it makes you think that we've had 4 players who can play in that position, albeit some not very well. Yet we've had to resort to getting a 5th person in. Just shows the quality of the players that we don't have in that position. I rated Target's performance. I think it was very under the radar performance, which is probably what you want from your defenders, because if they're going under the radar, it means they haven't had a busy game. But when called upon, he was solid, he was reliable. His partnership with Shaw worked quite well. They seem to have a bit of a good understanding already. And his reaction to when Trippier scored that goal, you'd think he'd been in the squad since day one, Bruce being there, because his reaction was as good as anybody else's. You wouldn't think he was a lone player. He already seems as though he's an integral part of that squad. And whether we've got
he's bought in like pretty quick.
He's bought in, which is what we wanted from all the players, and that's what Eddie Howe said when we got him in. I don't know if we've got an option to buy at the end of the season. I don't know whether we would want to, because if we stay up, we've got that cash to purposely go out and buy maybe a more high-profile left back, someone who's going to take us onto that next level, just like what Seb was saying. And it's a performance that, if he can continue that for the rest of the season, our chances of staying up have massively increased, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay saying that he's gone under the radar, but when you sort of have Kieran Trippier having the game that he had against Everton on the other side, it's you're always going to be a little bit in the shadows, unfortunately. But I thought he was solid. As I said, I think there was a few chances where he seemed to try to get the overlap going, and St. Maximin cut inside and did what St. Maximin always does. But if St. Maximin can learn to utilize, and don't get me wrong, I thought Maxi had a brilliant game against Everton. Certainly second half, I think he went up another gear, which is a huge thing for Eddie Howe, getting that fitness level right, because the one thing that we all knew under Bruce was the fitness level was just atrocious. And it is quite nice to kind of speak to another fan that understands our pain of having Steve Bruce as a manager, and that it's not all roses, and he is a bit of a joke when it comes to sort of like training and tactics and stuff, and we're not just ungrateful. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Target at the end of the season if he keeps having solid performances, because we are quite light in that position, and there is every chance that maybe we want him as a squad player. But then if he's not willing to do that at Villa, then is he going to willing to do that here? So watch this space, I guess. So we're just going to leave that here for now, and we'll be right back. Right then, so on to our match preview. So we've actually got some team sheets. I'm going to let Seb go first because I'm actually intrigued to see what sort of formation and team selection, given that there are some injury concerns over both sides, and I believe a suspension as well for your centre half, I believe. So we'll put that up on the screen. So talk us through this proposed starting lineup for and what you expect from that particular squad.
Yeah, see, I think I gave this to you before our game last night, and it had Konsa in it. So Konsa's a massive fan favourite down at Villa Park. We've been calling for him to be in the England team for many months now. He's so calm and assured on the ball. Some have even likened him to the late Paul McGrath, who's now referred to as God down at Villa Park. In terms of someone alongside Tyrone Mings, he fits perfectly. However, his red card last night was nothing short of stupid. 2 yellow cards which were 2 blatant yellow cards for just so unneeded, and now puts us in a difficult position against a rejuvenated Newcastle team where he could have really been the star to be able to keep out Chris Wood. Chris Wood loves scoring against Villa, and now being a centre-back lighter than we should have been, it just makes our task even more difficult. I think you guys have won 2 on the bounce now, so I was already concerned about it. But Newcastle, St James's Park, when it's lifted up and when the crowd are right behind it, is incredible. It's one of the best grounds in England, in the world, in fact. So I think Newcastle will start strong. I think it will be a difficult 20 minutes for Villa, and I think we'll need to weather that storm to be able to push on, a bit like we did against Everton when they were rejuvenated under Duncan Ferguson. And not having Konsa there makes that task 10 times more difficult. We recently brought in Callum Chambers, so I could have quite easily put him there alongside Tyrone Mings. He's also a right-footed centre-back, so we would have had Mings, who's left-footed, and Chambers, who's right-footed. However, I've gone with House just purely because of Wood's aerial presence. I think there's not many strikers in the Premier League who will get the better of Courtney House when in the air. He's dealt with Ronaldo at Old Trafford. He's dealt with Lukaku at Stamford Bridge. There are a lot of physical players that House is able to get the best out of, and he's got one of the best heading ratios and aerial duel wins in the league, let alone across our squad. So I went with House purely for that, but it could quite easily be either of the two. If it is Chambers, it will be interesting to see, because he only got a cameo of about 10 minutes last night. So if he starts at St James's Park, it will be interesting to see how he does alongside Mings for the first time, and whether he'll be able to weather that storm or whether he starts quite shakily. Ramsey, Douglas-Luiz and McGinn speaks for itself, really. That midfield three has worked well for us. However, it's interesting because we've got Sanson stuck on the bench and we've got Chukwuemeka, our young 18-year-old, stuck on the bench. So whether they come in, I don't think it's likely, so that should be fine. And then we get onto the front three of Coutinho, Buendia and Ings. It was Coutinho, Buendia and Watkins last night. Personally, if you ask me, I prefer Ings out of the two because I feel as though Ings is a Premier League proven goal scorer. He'll be the man to get you 20 goals a season if you need it. Watkins had a brilliant season last season, but I just feel if you've got a man of Ings' stature in your squad, you're going to start him. For Watkins to get a goal, he needs 3 or 4 chances and he'll put one of them away, whereas Ings will need that one chance and he'll take it. And that could be crucial for a team like Villa, especially against, a better team now in Newcastle than you were a few months back. Getting on to Coutinho and Buendia, they both went off with what looks like injuries last night, so that could potentially be completely different to what I predicted. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Buendia went straight down the tunnel, whereas Coutinho went and sat on the bench. So I think Coutinho tried to carry on with his, but then came off, so his looked less severe than Buendia's. However, I was mentioning earlier, Coutinho, Buendia and Ramsey are absolutely pivotal to Villa's performances at the moment. Everything that we do well goes through those 3 players. So if we miss one of them, let alone 2 of them, then that could be massively damaging. You saw last night when they both went off, we had to resort to defending against Leeds because we just had nothing else to offer up front. So, I could have got three players out of this prediction wrong. So, you don't have to listen to much that I say. But if it was me and those were the players available, then that's the squad I'd go for 100%.
Oh, that's fair enough. I mean, it's been very hush-hush over the 2 injuries, I have to admit. There's not a great deal. Everything's being played close to the chest. And yeah, it's probably, I mean, as you said, if Coutinho is sort of just a bit of a niggle and brought off for a bit of cautionary time on the bench maybe. But yeah, it's a dangerous move, especially with the game as it was last night. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, I think we all want to see, I mean, as Newcastle fans, it would be great to not have Villa's best players available, but obviously, as football fans, everyone wants to see the best players go up against each other. So on to Craig's pick for the Newcastle team. And obviously, we've got a couple of new players that are going to sort of step in. We can't play Target, and there is still a question mark over Trippier because he went off injured as well for us. So again, maybe that's just a cautionary one that he went off with, but he did kind of seem to signal straight away that he needed to come off, which was a little bit worrying. But walk us through your team, Craig, and what you think is going to happen.
Yep. So starting on the far right, we've got Trippier. If he's fit, he goes into that slot, no questions asked. He's been our best player consistently for a good few games now. Then we've got Sean Lascelles, keeping with the centre-back positions. I can't see Dan Burn getting a place of either of those based off how well both played against Everton. I think it would be wrong to remove either of them from the squad based off that performance. Manquillo comes in for the ineligible target. Manquillo, he was quite effective there against Leeds when he needed to come on to replace Dummett. He actually won the free kick, which led to the goal. So hopefully he can continue with that. Midfield, we've got Shelvey and Joe Linton with Bruno Guimaraes. I think that's how it's pronounced. Hopefully making his starting debut. Again, his little cameo that he had for a few minutes against Everton. He had some nice little touches. He set Maxman down in that little back heel in the corner, and the look on Dele Alli's face as it went past him. He just wanted the world to swallow him whole. It was fantastic. So Maxman on the left, Fraser on the right. Again, exactly the same as what we had over the last few games, and Wood as a lone central striker up front.
So obviously at the back line, we've got question marks over Trippier. There's a lot of Brighton fans have been saying that Dan Burn's capable of playing at left back. So if we can't get Trippier out there, would you play Manquillo at right back and play Dan Burn at left back, or would you try and get Kraft in there or something like that?
I'm one of Kraft's biggest haters, to be honest. I don't see what he brings to the squad. He was a signing by Bruce, and it was a signing that didn't really need to be made, because at the time we had Manquillo and we also had I can't remember his name, the other left back, the American, who went to Turkey. We had him as well. Sorry?
Yedlin?
Yedlin,
yes.
Yedlin, yeah. And Yedlin was okay. He relied on his pace a lot to help her out, to be honest. But he was a third signing right back, which we didn't need. And I've never been a big fan of Kraft. So I would keep, switch Manquillo to the right if we have to, and Burn on the left, like you said. Or even, if we absolutely have to, Shaw, he's been known to play on the left side a few times and have Burn as a centre-back. Who knows? Yeah,
we've got a few options now, which is surprising. I think Lee touched on it the other night, where it was like, we've got a bit of strength and depth now. It's like, what's this all about? The midfield, obviously, Chris Wood has not scored since he joined. So I'm kind of hoping that Seb's right and that he sort of likes playing against Villa, because I think for him, confidence-wise, I think he just needs a goal. The price tag was pretty hefty for the sort of stature of player he was. Everyone's saying that we overpaid for that, but needs must as the devil drives and all that. But I think he's been singled out a little bit for some criticism because he's not getting in the right places, he's not getting chances. But for me, he's doing a lot of grafting off the ball. He's creating that aerial sort of threat that somebody needs to pick him up. And you're sort of seeing there from what Seb's saying, we want to play this defender just to keep hold of him and make sure that we can deal with his physicality and his aerial threat. So, I think he's taking defenders out of position. I think he's winning a lot of balls. He's holding things up relatively well. He's just not getting onto the end of things at the moment, but we're not really creating any chances for him either. So the midfield three, obviously Joe Linton has been like a revelation since he moved back into midfield. Eddie Howe, tip the hat to him for coming up with that one. I think we all figured it was £40 million down the toilet when he was playing under Bruce. But since he's moved into midfield, he's been reborn. I know we keep joking that he found his passport and realised he was Brazilian and could actually play football after all. He's got his compatriot now in the squad. How difficult is it going to be for you, Craig, do you think, for Howe to drop Willock after his second half performance?
Well, Willock, again, he's been very inconsistent. Leeds, first 45 minutes, maybe even first 60 minutes, he done nothing but give the ball away in a very lazy performance. And then he just had the light bulb moment where he came to life and it was the Willock of last season. And at Leeds, he had that opportunity to get that second goal. And I think a more confident Willock would have put that away, but obviously he's lacking that right now. In the first 45 minutes against Everton, he was so lackluster. He looked lethargic, he looked slow, looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked scared to be in possession. Whether it's because in the second half he was playing a little bit higher up the pitch, so he could play in the space that little bit more, which then utilised his abilities. But I can't see us getting a good 90 minutes out of him. Hence why I put Bruno. We'll call him Bruno.
Bruno.
Yeah, we'll put Bruno in there just because I think the fans are expecting him to start. He's had probably a week's worth of training sessions under his belt by then, so you'd expect him to, and I think the crowd will want it. And I think there'll be a little bit of discontent in the crowd if he doesn't start as well, and that will be the last thing we'd want, because as Seb said, when St James's is rocking, it's one of the best places in Europe, and we need that place bouncing from the first whistle, and Bruno will have that effect.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Fraser has been one of the standout players for us recently. Since Howe came in, the change in his play style. Obviously, I think fitness has just played such a huge part in a lot of our players. I mean, St Maximin rarely, if ever, completed a full 90 minutes. He was always kind of getting substituted because he just ran himself into the ground. And that was kind of very indicative of the whole squad, really, because we were basically on the back foot constantly, chasing players, trying to defend, trying to kind of win the ball back. And we just ran out of steam after 60 minutes. So we would just get steamrolled by clubs. But now we're the ones that are kind of finishing the games the strongest at the moment. And one thing I will say about the Everton game is I think the performance was fantastic, but I think performance-wise, we actually also did a very similar performance against Manchester United. I think we worked really hard. I think we played them off the park in the second half. I think we deserved to win that game, just couldn't make it work. And I thought after the game, you saw the heads drop of the players, and I wonder whether or not that was just like, look, we've given it everything. We still couldn't get a win. Are we ever going to win another game? And then we ended up, I think it was like the enforced COVID break or whatever. And they came back. We got beaten in the FA Cup game against the League Two side. We got pretty much looked very lackluster again. Was it Watford the next game? And we just didn't seem up for the fight. And I wonder whether or not that was just this sort of hangover from, we've given everything and it's still not working. So what do we do now? Where the result against Leeds was great. I think that kind of gave them that lift. And then we've gone away, they've recharged the batteries, and they've came back and actually put on an absolute masterclass against Everton in terms of pressing football. And what's more is that they've got the result that play deserved. So it's kind of like this self-fulfilling cycle at the moment where if they play well and they get the results, then they know they can get the results if they play well. So they're going to go out and they're going to give it their all again. And obviously being at home, that's going to be a huge advantage for us as well. I think everyone wants to see what Bruno is going to do after his little 2-minute cameo where he slotted that ball through the eye of the needle for St Maximin to run onto. Perfectly weighted pass. Probably should have scored from that and made it 4. And then his little cheeky back heel is just like, announcing himself on the scene, which was quite fun. Mm-hmm. I think everyone's kind of keen to see how he goes in midfield, see how he links up with Joe Linton. As long as we keep Joe Linton out of the box, so he's not going to head his own shots clear again, because I still don't know how he managed to do that. That was just, yeah. But not to worry, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he is actually running things in midfield at the moment. I am curious to see Coutinho go up against Guimaraes if they're both playing. That would be good. I don't know who's going to win that battle of the Brazilian midfield. It'll be interesting to watch out for. So we'll probably wind things up there. We've got a so it's a Sunday night, early Monday morning game, I think, here. So it's probably not something I'll be watching live, unfortunately. I'll catch it in the morning on replay. But before we go, let's hear everyone's tips for the scores. Seb, as our guest, I'll let you go first.
I think I said last night, I think I was going to go 2-1, but I think it was 2-1 Villa across the board, so I thought I'd be original. So I went 3-1 instead, just because of our attacking talent. If they're fit, then I back us to score a few goals. It's just about whether we can keep them out at the other end and keep Wood quiet for once. So I'm going to stick with my prediction and say 3-1.
Fair enough. Craig?
I want to say 2-0. Because I've got a feeling Coutinho's just not going to make that squad. Or if he does start, he's going to limp off injured again. And that will be a big blow for Villa and a massive advantage for us.
Yeah, I think if something like that did happen, then yeah, you're going to sort of see that lift of the crowd as well when he goes off. But I'm going to be the pessimist of the group then, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think both teams will score, but I don't think either team's got the defensive solidity at the moment to keep the other one out all the time. So yeah, 2-2 for me. So I'll wrap things up there. Thanks very much for joining us, Seb. I know you need to jet off, so we'll let you go and catch your bus. But yeah, thanks for everyone for watching and listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Please like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and leave your comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So thanks very much, everyone, and take care.